Hey everybody, this is Chad from Stick's Blog. I'm Stick, and today I want to do a gear review on my Gossamer Gear LT4 trekking poles. You can see that there. These are the Gossamer Gear LT4 trekking poles here. Before I get started, I do want to say that as of the last couple of weeks, I've been accepted into the Trail Ambassador program at Gossamer Gear. So first off, I want to give a big thanks to Grant and all the other guys at Gossamer Gear for allowing me to come on board to be part of the Ambassador program. There's a lot of other well-known trail ambassadors made up of a bunch of different hikers, bloggers, just a lot of really well-known people that, in my opinion, have a lot to offer to the hiking world. So I completely feel honored to be a partnership with both Gossamer Gear as well as to be accepted into the same program as a lot of these other hikers and bloggers are. So like I said, big thanks to everybody for accepting me into that program, and I look forward to what goes on in the future. Saying that, I would like to point out one of the very first things. I did pay for these trekking poles with my own money. These were not provided to me by Gossamer Gear, nor was I under any obligation to do any sort of review. However, after owning them and putting about 200 miles on them, I feel like these are probably my favorite, not probably, they are my favorite trekking poles that I've had to date. And I felt that I wanted to do a review on it. So, saying that, just to kind of go over a little bit of history as far as what trekking poles I've had in the past and how I've come to these. To begin with, when I first started using trekking poles in general, I actually went to Walmart and I bought a pair of the $12 a pole outdoor product trekking poles, and they were very similar to these poles here that have the speed locks on them. And I went through a couple of pairs of those, and they were fine poles considering I only paid 12 bucks a pole for them. But you know, I knew that there were better poles that had better locking mechanisms, maybe not different, maybe the same, but just overall better quality. After I went through two pairs of the outdoor product poles, I got the poles that you see here that are actually holding up my Go-Lock poncho tarp. The leaky, I don't know, there's a big long name to them. They're Aragon Cork Light, something. Anyway, these are great poles. I didn't use them very long because actually when I got these poles, I really wanted to get these LT4s. However, I didn't have that much money to spend, so I ended up going with the leakies. However, I saved up money, and like I said at the beginning of the video, I used my own money to buy these poles. So like I said, I got these poles at the beginning of this year, and then as I already mentioned, I put about 200 miles on them so far, and I've really got nothing but good things to say about them. Before I get real involved in just kind of talking about the poles, though, I want to go over some of the specs that are listed on the Gossamer Gear site. And just to start off with, on the handles, despite what you may think, these are not cork handles. These are actually foam handles, and Gossamer Gear calls them the Corkalon foam handles. But in my opinion, the handles are very comfortable. They grip to my hand fairly well. They do feel kind of like foam, but they're different than some of the other foam that's been on my other poles. So far, I'm going to have to say that I like these grips better than I do on any of the other poles that I've used so far. Of course, the shaft, the entire shaft of the pole, both the upper and the lower, these are the adjustables. Gossamer Gear does offer these in a fixed length as well as in adjustables, and obviously these are the adjustables. But the entire shaft of both the upper and the lower pole is made out of carbon fiber. And then, as you can see, I'm not sure, I'll get a little close up in just a little bit, the bottom, about the bottom foot, or not quite a foot, about the bottom 10 to 12 inches is actually wrapped. I'm not 100% sure what kind of wrap is on this, but anyway, it is wrapped. And they do that simply because whenever you're using the trekking poles, these are the areas that generally take most of the abuse because they bounce off of other rocks or trees or just whatever. So these areas can get kind of beat up. So they actually wrapped it to kind of help reinforce the carbon fiber pole there at the bottom. As far as the tips, these have carbide tips on them, and as far as I understand, the actual bottom part of the tips, they're actually glued on. So if you ever have to change the tips out, they do not recommend twisting with a pair of vice grips or anything. They don't recommend twisting because you can destroy the carbon fiber shaft that's underneath it. somehow you're just supposed to simply knock it off with a hammer. That might be something I might have to send in and let them do, just to know that I would know that I didn't destroy the bottom section of my pole. However, real quick side note, if you do need to buy replacement parts, they make replacement, of course, tips. You can buy replacement tips, you can buy replacement handles, and then I do believe that you can also buy the entire bottom shaft of the pole on the website. I'm not 100% sure. You can look on the site to find out. But a lot of stuff is replaceable, so that you can actually buy stuff and replace it yourself if you choose to do so. Also, one other thing, they have a little keeper loop here. This is some Spectra cord, and some people may prefer to put just a little piece of cord on there to kind of slip their hands through. That way, if they're using the poles, they're not straps, they're not to be confused with straps, but if they're using the poles, they can kind of let go of the pole, and the keeper cord would just kind of hold onto the pole so that you don't have to lean it up against a tree or stab it in the ground or set it down or something, so that you constantly have your pole close to your hand. I choose obviously not to attach anything to that. If I was just a hardcore true ultralighter, I guess I would actually cut those little cords off, but you know, I bet they wouldn't even show up on the weight, so I'm leaving them there. And then, let's see, one of the last parts that I want to point out is this little round O-ring. Gossamer Gear now sends 3 O-rings with the adjustable poles. They send 1 on each trekking pole, and then they send 1 extra just in case you need it. And the purpose of these little red O-rings is so that as I have this pole set up, it's upside down holding my shelter up. So if you're using the trekking pole, what you would do is once you inverted the pole to lift your shelter up, you would take that red rubber and you would push it all the way down to where the top shaft meets the bottom shaft. And basically all that does is that makes a seal, kind of acts as a gasket to help keep some of the rain and stuff from washing down into the shaft or the top shaft of the pole. Because what happens if a lot of rain or grit or sand or just whatever gets in there, that can get around this locking mechanism, which I'll talk about in just a second, and then that will actually cause a lot of problems with trying to lock and unlock your trekking poles to adjust them to different lengths. So they recommend always shoving that little O-ring down up against the bottom or the top, depending on how you're looking at it, the bottom section of the pole there, to help deter water from running down into the bottom of it. I will say also that each pair of trekking poles also come with a set of baskets. I don't have the baskets on mine just simply because I don't need them. Personal preference. I used to always use them, and then actually after my first trip using these poles, I took everything apart to clean it just as the website instructs you to. And then the very next trip, not that I necessarily forgot, but I wasn't really thinking real well, and I didn't add these back to my poles. And then by the time I got on the trail, I realized, you know, hey, I didn't put my baskets back on. But you know what? They performed and functioned no differently in my opinion. So I got to where I don't even really use these. Let's see here. As I did say, Gossamer Gear does recommend to store these poles separated rather than together whenever you're actually storing them. And I will say that I always do that. The first thing I do when I get home from a trip is I pull the poles apart, and I basically, unless they're just completely dirty, I'll just take a wet wash towel and I'll just kind of rub over this top shaft here. I'll do the same thing under the bottom shaft. I'll actually take the bottom and stick up underneath the faucet and use my hand and just some water, clean off all the dirt, try to get everything kind of clean up around the bottom section of the pole, and then I dry them. And then, as I said, I do store them separate. On occasion, I have actually stuck the handle up underneath the water and just kind of wiped it off, but to be honest, I don't really do that very often. And you can tell that they're dirty and worn, but hey, you know what, who cares? They're supposed to be dirty and worn. Let's see, one thing that Gossamer Gear does recommend is whenever you're tightening the shaft, and I'll get to the locking mechanism in just a minute, but whenever you're tightening the shaft, they recommend not to over tighten, and I'm going to get all that in just a little bit. Let's see. Oh yes, the adjustable heights on these things is important because you know, a lot of people do opt to use their trekking poles as their tent poles for their shelters and stuff. So, saying that, these adjustable LT4s, the regulars, not the shorties, the listed adjustable height is 35.5 inches at the smallest, and they recommend 55 inches is the longest that it'll adjust to. Now I will say some shelters require a taller trekking pole, and one option that they do sell for these is basically a trekking pole extender. I can't remember if that's the technical name on the website or not, but anyway, from what I understand, you would pull the pole apart, you would stick one end down here, and then the shaft would actually go into the extender part, and that way you're not actually putting anything on the end of the pole and causing potential for this shaft or the tip to break off, but rather you're just basically extending the middle section of the pole. That's a really good idea, and if I ever get a shelter such as the MLD Duo Mid, which I'm quite interested in at the moment, that will be a great option rather than using the pole jacks that some people use, because like I said, that can potentially break off the tip if there's too much pressure put on it either way. And I think that's it. A couple of other options that you can get on these. Some trekking poles do come with the wrist straps. As I said, these are for keeper straps, not wrist straps, but some of them will actually come with a nut inside the top, and the straps are actually attached to that. I choose not to use the straps just simply because, really, to be honest, at first it was all about a weight savings thing. I didn't want to add extra weight to it. But then the more I've used them over time, the more I realized that I don't really care using these without straps. So that is one option that you can get with these trekking poles. And another option you can get, if you do opt to get the trekking poles that come with the straps, you can actually get a camera mount. If you get the poles that doesn't come with a strap, such as these, there's no way to attach a camera mount to it, so that's something you need to look at in advance. If you think you might use the camera mount, you'll need to make sure you get the LT4s that actually have the camera strap or the wrist strap on it. Sorry, I'm getting tongue-tied. One other thing that they do sell is boots. And what I mean is basically it's just a rubber boot that goes over the tip of your trekking poles just in case you want to save the tip. Or, you know, if you've got this trekking pole like what I've got this one and it's tip up, you may want to protect the roof of your shelter if it's inside the shelter with those boots. That's just a you know, thing that you can buy extra on the side if you choose to. So anyway, real quick, I want to talk about the locking mechanism on this, and then I just want to share some general thoughts. So, as far as the locking mechanism, this locks different than the other sets of trekking poles I've had. Like I said, I've only had 2 other sets, so I'm not a big, you know, connoisseur of trekking poles. I don't have a lot of trekking poles to compare them by. But to be honest, this was one of the things that really confounded me and confused me when just reading about it on the website. I wasn't exactly sure how these locks actually worked. You know, I was used to these here, or I was used to the other ones that twist. I never had any of the ones that twisted other than these, but I couldn't really put my head around it. And so basically all this is this is a neoprene rubber compound or component. They basically have a nut or a bolt screwed into the top part of the bottom half of the shaft, and then on that nut is just a neoprene rubber component. And basically what you do is, as you tighten this up or loosen it up, this rubber piece will actually hit the head, and then the more that you tighten it, what happens is that neoprene rubber piece actually expands because it's being shoved up against it, so it's expanding. And that's essentially all that locks the poles. Now I will say right quick that I have noticed one time some difficulty in this holding and locking. Basically I went from a really hot car to a really cold outside. I had a shuttle, the shuttle dropped me off, it was really hot inside the truck. As soon as I got out, it's like the rubber part, I don't know, got confused and kind of got hard or something maybe and didn't quite expand right. But after about a minute or 2 of messing with it, the pole locked again, and since then I've never had any other issues. Another thing I will say, that like I mentioned earlier, if you're using your pole upside down and water and dirt gets in there, water and dirt can cause this mechanism, according to the website, not to work exactly right. So that's one reason why you want to take advantage of the O-ring, and another reason to keep your poles clean. If you're out in the field, they say that if you pull it apart and it's not holding well, you can actually just use your fingers and just kind of rub across the mechanism to kind of clean it off and take care of that. And I'll get a close-up view here in just a second and show you exactly what I'm talking about here. Okay guys, just kind of give you a close-up of the pole here, the locking component. As I said, this is just a piece of neoprene rubber compound, and as you can see here, it's not focusing in very well, but as you can see here, there's just a nut, and it's basically screwed into the top portion of the bottom shaft, and then there's this this piece here. And essentially the way it does is whenever you slide it into the trekking pole and then you twist it, that's all it takes, and then there it is, and that's tight. It's not going anywhere. And then to unlock it, you just kind of give it a slight turn back the other way, and it pulls out. And then to be really cool, it makes this really cool sound that freaks out my wife when I take it apart when I get home. But anyway, that's the locking mechanism on the LT4 trekking pole. Okay, now that I've gone over that, I just want to talk a little bit of just my general thoughts about it. And there's not a whole lot because I've actually covered it so far in the video. To be quite honest, I really love these poles. And to be honest with you, the biggest reason I love these poles is because they're so lightweight. It's not like this. Two of these Gossamer Gear LT4 trekking poles weigh the same amount as one of these. Now, some people are going to say maybe, what's the point? Who cares? It's just a trekking pole. You know, it's not in your pack or anything like that. But here's the thing. Every time you walk in and using your trekking poles, you're picking those things up. So you just do the math and figure out how many times you pick those poles up each time, every day, for however many days you're out hiking. And it's going to add up, especially if you're doing something like a thru hike. So in my opinion, I like the lightweight of these poles. Some people may not like the fact that they only get so big whenever you fold them up. So if I want to pack this in my backpack, it's going to be harder for me to pack up, say, this pole, because you can see, I don't know how we can see it in the camera, but you know, this pole will probably go down to about here. So this pole is at least about another 8 to 10 inches longer whenever it's completely packed down. In my opinion, so far, there's not been an issue for me. I always find myself using the trekking poles whenever I'm out on a hike rather than thinking about, I need to store these things because I'm not using them. Now, I will say that if I was in a really, really rocky area where I had to use my hands or feet, or if I was a really steep ascent or descent, it might be different. But at the same time, still, I would just lash them to the side of my backpack and call it quits and just get on with it. That's my opinion. I'm not trying to say that that's everybody else's opinion, and a lot of people may not agree with me on that. Like I said, though, that's just my opinion. Other than that, though, I really can't tell you what to say. I will say that when I first got them, it took me about 30 miles to get to where I would use them the way I would these. Now, I do want to say right off the top of my head, I'm not generally rough with my gear, and trekking poles is no exception. I don't necessarily baby it, but I don't intentionally put it through trials that it doesn't have to go through, just to see if I can break it or tear it up or whatever. Like I said, I did pay for these, and if they tore up, I would have to pay for another pair, and I guarantee you that I would because I like them so much. However, saying that, it's not my goal to absolutely just go out there and try my best to destroy these. But, like I said, it did take me about 30 miles because I'll admit, the first time I picked up one of these, I thought, geez whiz, this is nothing. I mean, there's nothing to this. But I'm telling you something, there is something to this. And if you're responsible, and if you'll just pay attention when you're walking through there, I have no doubt whatsoever in these poles. I would not hesitate to begin any long distance trail with these trekking poles. And to be honest with you, it's something I don't think that would fail. Now, I will say that accidents do happen, and you know, sometimes things happen. That's something we all have to live with, and there's no company out there that's going to make a product that can overcome what just may happen. So that's something we all have to make a decision for ourselves. And my decision is to go with the Gossamer Gear LT4 trekking poles if I'm going to carry a trekking pole. So anyway, that's my review. That's some of my thoughts on the Gossamer Gear LT4 trekking poles. Like I said, I really love them. And again, I want to say thank you to the guys at Gossamer Gear for letting me come on board and be a part of their Trail Ambassador program. If anybody has any comments or questions, feel free to post them below this video or this write-up, and I'll do my best to get back to you, answer those questions, or reply any comments. as well. Feel free to get in touch with any of the guys at Gossamer Gear. If they're anything like all of my past experiences, you're going to have a very satisfied experience when getting in touch with them. So anyway, I appreciate you for watching, and until later, see ya.